guys, what's going on everybody? It's your boy Shimigami X, aka Captain X. I'm leader of Squad X and president of Squad 00. Here today to give you none other than your weekly prescribed Bleach chapter review. Alright, I'm giving you this review out a day late for, there's a reason I'm doing this. There's a method to my madness. And what that method is basically, I decided that I wanted to engage my subscribers with my video a little bit more. So what I've done is that, from now on, every time that a chapter comes out, I will post a status on my Facebook fan page and my Twitter fan page, letting my followers and subscribers know that I've read the chapter, and that gives you the opportunity to ask me questions in the comment section of that comment. So basically, that's what I want you to do. And then whenever you guys ask me questions, I'm gonna select a few of those questions. Naturally, I can't answer all of them, and I'm gonna answer as much of them as I can. And that's the way I'm gonna do the review. You're still going to get my review, like basically my general thoughts of the chapter, but you're also gonna have specific questions answered, but it has to be obviously related to that chapter naturally. All right, so that's just the way I'm gonna do things. So I want to engage you guys more. So now that we've covered all of that, let's just get into the review. But obviously, of course, right after that intro. Alright guys, now that the lengthy introductions are out of the way, let's get right into the nitty gritty. Today what I'm going to be reviewing for you is Bleach chapter 609, entitled A. Quite a simple chapter title, but obviously it makes sense in the context of this chapter. Now, let's dive into things. I think what I want to do as a first protocol, I'm going to start question time first. And basically, the reason I'm going to start the question time first is simply for the fact that there may be questions that you ask me, which obviously relates to the chapter, which would be in a point that I would have covered when I give my general review. So instead of saying things twice, doesn't make sense. I may as well answer your questions first, and then whatever's left in the chapter for me to talk about, I will do that, obviously. Now, nonetheless, let's get into things. Alright, let's start with Jean Perry. I can't pronounce the very last names, but you know who you are on my Facebook fan page, Squad X. Link always in the description below. I'm going to keep ramming that into your head until you guys eventually do it. Alright, now your question is this. Now that the power of the Almighty is explained, do you think he will take Ichibe's Bankai or defeat him with a Quincy ability we haven't seen before? Okay, there's more to it. And I'm going to be greedy and throw a second topic at you. Yeah, man, go for it. Alright, since Ichigo has never been one to explain his techniques, would that be why he defeats Juha? Okay, two questions. Firstly, let's answer the first part of your question first. Now, what does the Almighty stand for, basically, in my opinion? In my opinion, I'm going to go from my own life experiences and things that I go through, and just basically my own life experiences. Alright, what I believe that the Almighty means is that the Almighty means for the sense to be able to do any and everything. Because when you look at the Almighty figure, when it comes to like Christ figures, basically, and deities, they have the ability to do any and anything because they're essentially gods. And that's what Juha is in terms of the Quincy's. He is the Christ figure of the Quincy's. Juha having a very close time to the name Juha, which is called YH, something like that. I can't remember exactly how it's pronounced. I believe it's Hindu or something like that. I really can't remember the exact specifics, and I don't want to say too much more about that because I could be horribly wrong, and that's not something that I want to get wrong. But based on my own knowledge is that the Almighty figure has the power to do any and anything. And then based off what we know of Juha and when we got his backstory, and that is very significant when it comes to you asking me that question, because when Juha was born, he was born blind, deaf, and dumb. He didn't have the power to do anything. He didn't have the power to function properly. All he could do was basically, he couldn't even cry. He couldn't do anything. He was just a baby lying there. But anything that he came into contact with, a bit of his soul would pass on to that person, when then that person would gain would basically become a better version of himself, but they would die shortly after. And then their soul, their experiences, skills, and abilities would go back to Juha, and eventually giving Juha the power to get rid of his, to basically not be blind, deaf, and dumb. And also gain the knowledge and experiences of those that he came into contact with. Now, I believe the same thing happens with these Quincy's. And the reason I believe that is simply because when you look at the panel between, remember that a long time ago you saw like the backstory of Asnod, and he was basically in a hospital bed. And then obviously now he has the fear ability and all that stuff. Now, I believe that when it came to these Star Knights, Juha has obviously come into contact with them in some way. Either it be like him directly giving them a blood, like what happened with Ishida Uryu, or it be by him touching them or whatever the case may be. Most likely to do with the blood, since they're Star Knights and they're basically like his elites. Not the elite Star Knights, but they're basically his elite soldiers. Now, with that in mind, I don't believe that Juha naturally has any powers. His power is just literally to pass through his soul and just basically absorb the powers of those that he comes into contact with. So Juha's power, in a sense, is to take powers. But, so, when Juha gave out these, basically these abilities, gave out, you know, his soul to the Star Knights, I don't believe that he gave out specific abilities. I believe that all he did is give out his soul, and then the Star Knights themselves developed these specific abilities, which is the abilities of all the different abilities of the 26 Star Knights. And then obviously when they die, Juha would then gain their knowledge, battle experience, and their powers in return, then giving him access to those powers. So that's why I say that the Almighty is the power to do anything, because whoever he gives his soul to could essentially develop the power to do anything, such as Gremmy, he developed the power to reality warp. So when in that essence, Juha can then do anything, because he's going to get the powers back, and that power could be anything. So therefore, he is the Almighty, and that's what I believe that the power A stands for. And Uryu also is given the letter A, but that's something that we'll discuss in either a captain's table or a Bleach breakdown, which is something I'm going to do very, very soon. Alright, so that's for your question. So let's move on to another question. I hope that... Oh crap, the second part of your question that I didn't even answer. Duh. Let's before we move on, let's not skip out here. Okay, this part where you're being greedy. You said basically, do I think Ichigo is going to defeat Juha basically by not explaining his technique? No. I think it's going to be a bit more complicated than that. And the reason I think it's going to be a bit more complicated than that is for the simple fact that I don't believe that Ichigo is powerful enough to defeat Juha as it stands of right now. He has too many tricks up his sleeve for Ichigo to be able to handle. Ichigo has never been, you know, a tactician. He doesn't know various techniques. Well, we don't know what he can do with Bankai, but Ichigo's always been basically a one-move wonder. So I believe that Ichigo is going to defeat Juha with some help. Obviously not a major amount of help, but you know, just basically a little bit of help. I don't think it's something that he's going to be able to do on his own. And I don't think that the catalyst for Juha being defeated would be Ichigo not explaining his powers. I believe that the catalyst for Ichigo defeating Juha would be simply for the fact that he is part Quincy. Because as we've seen that there's been several instances in this final arc where Quincy abilities do not work on other Quincy's. And the best example of that is Kurge's jail. Kurge's jail doesn't let anything through it. Doesn't matter how powerful you are. The only reason that Ichigo was able to break through it is because he is part of Quincy. So I think that will be what will be Juha's undoing, is the fact that up until this day, he's never fought another Quincy. Yes, he's more powerful than the other Quincy's in the sense that he could destroy them, but then Ichigo is a hybrid of all the different beings in this Bleach universe. So that will be the catalyst for Juha's undoing, just for the simple fact that Ichigo is an abomination as such. And that's basically my thoughts about that. So let's move on to another question. Wow, we're about 7 minutes in. Yeah, let's find another question. Alright. For this question, I'm gonna go to Squad 00 Universe page because I know that there's like at least 3 people ask me questions there. Alright. Where we at? Oh, here we go. Alright. Vice Captain Sero Tensho. Sorry if I butcher all your names, guys. Alright. I would really like to get to know what Juha's powers can do. I mean, we found out his letter. Okay, what is the Almighty? Okay, we already explained what the Almighty means. I've already gone through that, so that's the same thing. Alright, Everson. Alright, an explanation of Ichibe's Zanpakuto abilities and his relationship to Bankai. As he's the one that may have come up with the idea. Alright, I'm going to rebuttal that right about now. I'm going to answer the second part of your question. I'm going to answer your second question first, because you actually asked me 2 questions there. Your second question is actually basically about, what's Ichibe's relationship with the basically Bankai. Okay, it's gonna sound somewhat crazy, but Ichibe has no relationship to Bankai. Okay, I know that sounds crazy because you're like, but wait, he's the one who named things, so surely he must have some kind of relationship to Bankai. No, and the reason I'm gonna tell you no is this. Okay, in this chapter, Ichibe clearly stated that, okay, I guess basically the youth of nowadays call this Bankai, which means that is a slang terminology in essence that he has never come up with. He said previously we called this the evolved Zanpakuto, which means that the state existed before he even named it. That means that the Zanpakuto and the idea of the Zanpakuto, when I say the idea of the Zanpakuto, I don't mean the actual name of the Zanpakuto. I mean the fact that, you know, the spirit sealed within the weapon, or basically the spirit in general then having 2 states, which is basically the powers of the Shinigami. That existed before Ichibe even named it. and that's quite clear to see, because what gives Ichibei the power to name things is his Zanpakuto, and more correctly, his Zanpakuto in Bankai form. So with that being said, since the fact that he has a Zanpakuto means that Oetsu would had to have created this Zanpakuto from an Asauchi, giving it to Ichibei, that molds to Ichibei, and then he then eventually names everything, like the Serete, the kimonos, the Captain's Furies, all of that kind of stuff. He then therefore goes and names things with his Bankai. Okay. And that would also explain why the Shinigami uniform is black and all things of that nature. So, with that being said, Ichibei didn't come up with the name Bankai. He didn't come up with the idea of Bankai. This existed before he even came up with the names. He only gained the power to name things after he attained the Zanpakuto. So, do you see my point? So that's why I'm going to rebuttal that statement right there. The relationship between Ichibei and Bankai is zero. The only relationship that he has is the fact that he named everything, but he named everything such as he named a Zanpakuto a Zanpakuto. Do you understand my point? And then he named what we know as Bankai called the Evolved Zanpakuto. He didn't call it Bankai. So the relationship between him and Bankai is zero. And that's that. Alright, now for the first part of your question. An explanation as to Ichibei's Zanpakuto abilities. Alright, in a nutshell, the chapter explained it very well. Like the last several chapters have explained this very well. But in a nutshell, Ichibei's Zanpakuto abilities is this. In Shikai, it releases this black ink. Anything that this black ink covers loses its abilities. So it's basically his ultimate power to be able to name things is a two-part ability. Shikai, whatever is covered in black ink, basically its powers are erased. They're gone. They don't exist anymore. It's now basically a blank canvas. It's almost like you have a white sheet of paper and you put Tipex on it, or you get my name and you blank it out. There's nothing there anymore. So therefore, whatever that name meant, or whatever the powers were behind that name, no longer exists. So it's power. So it's in Shikai, it's the power to take away abilities, so long as the black ink gets on it. Okay. Now in Bankai is here where things get interesting. Whatever he writes over the black ink with white ink, he now names it, and whatever he names it, it now gains the abilities of whatever it is that he named it, such as black ant. A black ant is basically an insect, it's a very fragile creature, which is why he gave that to Juha, because it makes Juha fragile and easier to be able to be killed. It makes sense. So it's a two-part ability. In Shikai, the power to erase all abilities. In Bankai, the power to overwrite, basically the power to overwrite the blank canvas and give new abilities, such as the name, because the power is within the name. Therefore, the pen is mightier than the sword and all that kind of reference there. That's a little thing that Kubo threw in there that most people won't recognize, but I do because I'm your captain and I'm just that good. Charles Anime World's quote, but I'm taking it for this one time. Alright. Now, I hope that's answered your question. And yeah, as for questions, I think that's going to do it for today, because we're about, we're 12 minutes in, nearly 13. So let's just move on now. Alright. Now that we covered question time, I hope you guys have liked how I've gone about things this week, and I hope you guys enjoy that. And follow the Facebook fan page. Link is always in the description below. Same as Twitter fan page. Link is always in the description below. Do it. Alright, now let's give you my general summary of the chapter. So there's several things that are covered in this chapter, but I'm not done yet. Alright, now overall, as a chapter, this chapter was a very good read. And the reason I say very good read, because there's subtle things that it did that most reviewers won't pick out on, and maybe you guys as readers didn't even pick out on until you read it again now that I'm going to point this out to you. It built up tension very well. And you're probably thinking, how? Okay, when Ichibei took away Juha's powers, renamed him Black Ant, and squashed him like a bug, sent him flying, Juha was essentially defeated. Okay, and that is evidently expressed by the expression on Hashkvold's face. The expression on Hashkvold's face was priceless. It was shocked. It was like horrified. Like, I can't believe that, basically my master Juha has been defeated, our king. So with that expression, it gave the reader the impression that, okay, he's been defeated, and then the reason how he's going to come back against Ichibei is via the assistance of Hashkvold. So it got the reader hyped up that Hashkvold was going to get involved. But so some people look at that as, oh yeah, that's a disappointment, but I look at it as, no, it's a positive in light of the chapter, that it did a very good job. So that's just my general thoughts about it. It was very well done in that sense, to basically draw out the reader's emotions, like, anticipation. Because anticipation is very good. If you can make the reader anticipate something and then, basically either exceed their expectations or go about things in a different way, you've done a very good job as a writer and an author. And Kubo has done a very good job in this chapter in that regard. As for the explanation of Ichibe's powers, yes, it was done in typical Bleach fashion, but it was done differently this time, in the extent where that wasn't the cause of it wasn't the direct cause of the counter of Ichibe's abilities. The reason that Ichibe's abilities are going to be able to be countered is simply for the fact of what Juha's letter stands for his own powers. Do you know what I mean? It's not a case of like, okay, you told me what your abilities are, I had to think up a strategy to be able to defeat you. It wasn't a case of like that. It was different this time, and I think that that's what was done really well. So overall, as a chapter as a whole, it was a very good read, and I did enjoy it. I thoroughly enjoyed it. I don't give chapters number ratings because there's no criteria for me to go off. I can't give this week's chapter, like, let's say an 8.5, and then give, let's say, next week's chapter's better and it deserves an 8.5, or let's say, for example, I give it a 10, and then next week's chapter's even better. What can I give that? A 10.5 out of 10? That doesn't make sense. So anyways, that's just the end of my review, guys. I hope you guys have enjoyed the way I've gone about things this week. I hope you guys have enjoyed my chapter review. It's your boy Shimigami X, aka your Captain X. I'm signing out, and as always, my people, take care and peace. And remember, keep it 99 plus 1. You do the math.